If you've already bought a few investment properties and you're wondering, what's next? This episode will open your eyes to the advanced strategies most doctors never hear about. Whether you're sitting on equity or just want to accelerate your passive income, adding value through property doesn't always mean taking on crazy risk or becoming a full-time developer. But most investors stop too early because they don't know what's possible.
A lot of people watch certain things on social media and think, oh, wow, I can go and build 4 townhouses and go and do a massive project and make millions of dollars and retire tomorrow, without realizing just what goes on behind the scenes to achieve that. And you can do really, really well just simply buying and holding good quality property, and even just doing a cosmetic reno, just some little stuff. It doesn't have to be super sexy.
Today, we've got Rich Harvey, a nationally recognized buyer's agent, here to walk us through cosmetic renos, granny flats, knockdown rebuilds, and even passive development strategies that doctors are quietly using to build multi-million-dollar portfolios.
I think the whole reason you would value add or do a development is you can have the ability to create additional equity, what I call manufacture equity. So what that means is, instead of waiting for the market to do the heavy lifting, you're actually creating and manufacturing the equity as we speak.
In this episode, we'll talk about return on investment benchmarks, risks to avoid, the hidden tax benefits, and how to scale your portfolio safely when you don't have time to manage the tradies or the permits. Now let's get into it. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Investing for Doctors podcast. I've got here Rich Harvey with me today.
Thanks, B. Great to be with you.
Hi, Rich. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And I guess have a quick introduction about yourself, who you are, what you do, and we'll get on with this episode today.
Sure. Really appreciate being on the podcast. So Rich Harvey, I'm the CEO of PROPERTYBUYER.com.au, exclusive buyer's agent, been operating for 25 years as a buyer's agent, got a national team around the country. We help home buyers, property investors, commercial buyers and developers to build portfolios and find exactly the right property they're looking for.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
And the topic for today's episode is more on the more sophisticated side of property investing, the value add strategies, and perhaps a little bit about development itself.
Yes.
As we previously spoken at our conference, there's a lot more strategies than just buy and hold.
Absolutely.
I guess for first-time investors in getting on the property ladder, you probably want to do a more basic approach, like just as buy and hold and let time do the magic. But there's obviously other more sophisticated strategies.
Yeah, I think for anyone watching this podcast for the first time and thinking about doing some value adding or development activities, my simple piece of advice is just beware of risk. Like, learn to walk before you run. A lot of people watch certain things on social media and think, oh, wow, I can go and build, 4 townhouses and go and do a massive project and make millions of dollars and retire tomorrow, without realizing just what goes on behind the scenes to achieve that. And you can do really, really well just simply buying and holding good quality property. And even just doing a cosmetic reno and just some little stuff, right? It doesn't have to be super sexy, right? So we can unpack what value adding looks like today. But I guess my key message would be, don't bite off more than you can chew, particularly for doctors that have limited time. Doctors can obviously outsource if they've got the resources to a project team and project manage things, and that's great. But there's a whole bunch of options we can talk about today on how to get involved in value adding.
Okay, let's start off with probably the easiest and easiest to get into, which is, as you mentioned, a bit of cosmetic uplift, maybe doing up the kitchen or doing up the bathroom.
Sure. I guess maybe the first question, also just to backtrack, if I may, just for 1 minute, just why do the value adding? I think the whole reason you would value add or do a development is you can have the ability to create additional equity, what I call manufacture equity. So what that means is, instead of waiting for the market to do the heavy lifting, you're actually creating and manufacturing the equity as we speak. So it creates a property that's more valuable. So I guess one of the simplest ones, as you say, is a cosmetic reno. So kitchens and bathrooms are the favourites for me, and they always tend to provide the best bang for buck or best value uplift. Kitchens is the heart of the home, so putting in a great kitchen. One thing I'd say there is, don't over-capitalize on the kitchen. It depends on the suburb you're doing the reno in. So if you're doing a reno in Vaucluse or Mossman, yes, you've got to get, the absolute perfect marble bench tops and, all the latest Gaggenau appliances. But if you're doing a renovation in Penrith on a house, you know, you can go with a smeg. You don't have to go with a stone bench top. You could go with a fancy laminate, right? So again, adjust the renovation style to what's going to be the outcome for that. Because sometimes doing cosmetic renos won't lift the rent that much. But if you put in, say, an air conditioner, you add another bedroom, that's a huge way to add value. If you go another story, they're absolutely game changers for the rental income as well.
Yeah. And obviously when you're doing that, the place may not be
you can't rent it out.
That's
right.
So
yes, exactly.
There's that cost as well, right?
Yeah, the opportunity cost.
So you know, maybe talk about sort of the risk and just starting off a reno, because that's just the most simple. You know, I wouldn't say straightforward, because that can be very complicated if done badly. Talk about that process. Well, how does that look like? You got to get who are the people you got to get involved and all that sort of thing?
Well, first thing is, okay, work out your plan. Okay, what are you going to do with the reno? Is it going to be a complete strip out of the whole house, or is it just 1 or 2 rooms, just like a kitchen and a bathroom? So obviously get 3 quotes. I'd be talking to 2 people. I'd be talking to a property manager in the local area, and I'd be talking to an agent about, you know, I'm thinking of doing this reno. Just give me some advice as to whether, you know, you think I should do this or that. And they can be really helpful, and particularly if they're managing.
What sort of agent? As in the
selling agent. The managing agent, both the property manager and the selling agents in the local area.
Okay.
They're great because they're going into 5 homes a week doing listing proposals. So they're seeing properties, and you can just tap into that bit of knowledge to get some advice from them, which really helps, you know?
Because I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize is often the property manager and a selling agent in the same fit out are different people. They're not the same person.
Yes, they're very different people.
Yeah, and they look at different things as well.
One will be giving you advice on the rental income, and they won't have really much of a clue on what the sale value is, and vice versa. So some agents do know both, but typically you've got to go to the property manager for the rent and the sales agent for the value uplift. So do a strategy session, or do a bit of research around, you know, what sort of uplift you're going to get from that. And then work out a plan for doing the reno. Get some quotes from the builder. I'll give you an example on property I did. You know, we had a property on the Northern Beaches, and it was a classic old 3-bedroom post-war home built in the late 1960s. Terracotta roof, had a granny flat behind the garage, and we did a reno on that property. Needed a new kitchen, and then we also enclosed part of the balcony at the rear and added a 4th bedroom. So we added a whole new bedroom to it, and that put the rent up at the time $100, and that was a great thing to do. So it cost us about $90,000 to do the kitchen and the bedroom extension. And we got a significant uplift. I reckon we probably added about $150,000 worth of value for a $90,000 spend. So typically what you want to do is, for every $1 you spend on a reno, you typically want to make $2 back. We probably did make about $2 back on that, so $180,000 worth of uplift. So, but what you don't want to do is spend $100,000 and the value only goes up by 50.
So
that's overcapitalizing.
That's overcapitalizing, so, wasting of time.
Yeah. So you also got to think about how long you're going to hold the property for too. Like if it's something you're going to sell in a hurry, and you know, just minimize the cosmetics, but just simple paint. Rip up the floorboards, put down some and polish the floorboards can be a really good strategy, just to bring in light. Simple things like new curtains and shutters on the blinds, and you know, those plantation shutters, they look amazing. Get rid of some blinds and put those in. That really gives it a real wow factor, and you can get some pretty cost-effective blinds these days. So whole really great ways you can renovate your property.
Yeah, and also like carpets and to boards and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, floorboards are, particularly in rental properties. Yeah, floorboards in the living areas are great because they're low maintenance and it's easier to keep clean.
Yeah. I find that's really useful, and they can be quite fast to put in as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
We did that in one of our places and just got rid of this old grey carpet that was like probably needed replacing anyway, and we put in these like laminates, and which looked really good. Great. And very low maintenance as well. So talk to the manager and talk to the agent. Like, how do you approach it? Because most people wouldn't have ever done this before. Like, do you just call them up and say, hey,
just give them a call.
I'm thinking about doing this.
If they're already managing your property, right? That'd be the best way. If they're already managing your property, you just say, hey, Bob, I'm thinking of doing a reno. We're going to do this and this and this. What are your thoughts? How much value do you think it'll add? Really appreciate your advice. you know.
Yeah.
And typically they're there to help, you know, because they want to build rapport with you because
Yeah, of
hopefully
course.
one day they might want to get you listed if you ever want to sell it. You know?
Yeah. Of
Simple as
course.
that.
Of course. And, you know, usually how long does it, and then you got to get the people to actually do the job, right?
You got to get the trades to turn up. So this is where a
yeah.
property manager can really help you, because good property managers often have a list of trades that they use regularly. And the good tradespeople want to be in with the property managers because they want regular work. So it's a good symbiotic relationship. So that's where a good manager comes into their own.
Yeah. And, you know, usually for the smaller pieces of work, it's
hard to get quotes.
It's also not as predictable. Like, how do you manage that process?
With difficulty.
Difficulty.
This is where you need a good partner, right?
Yeah.
Either your wife or a partner to help you out with that process, or you can outsource it to a property manager, to a project manager, sorry.
Yeah.
You can get a project manager who does these kind of rentals and coordinates everything. Yes, you pay a fee to do that, but they coordinate everything for you. So that's another way. Again, depending on your income, if you've got the ability to do that, save your time and just get it all done.
Okay.
And you want to compress the time frame, as you say. You don't want to be having the property vacant and have big gaps between when the trades are coming. You've got to coordinate the trades, particularly when you're doing a kitchen, because you've got to get the plumbing in. You've got to get all the electrics, scuffed in. Then you've got to get your plasterer. Then you've got to get your tiler. So then you get the cabinets. So you got to get a good project manager to coordinate those trades to come in one day after the other. Otherwise, the whole project blows out by months.
By months?
Absolutely. You don't want months. You want it done in weeks if you can.
Yeah. What's the
It depends on the project.
Time?
I mean, I've seen renos take 6 months. So
just for a kitchen.
Yeah. I mean, just if they're badly done.
Yeah.
Badly managed, I should say.
Yeah. So I guess that's the risk. And as doctors, or if you're time poor, don't try and do it yourself.
No.
Yeah, because it just ends in tears.
Exactly.
Okay. And typically that gets done in between sort of leases. Is that the most optimal time?
I mean, depending on the tenant you've got, let's say you've got 2 bathrooms, you could do 1 bathroom at a time and offer to give the tenant a discount on the rent, for example.
Okay.
Right? Even if the tenant's there, it's just about negotiating. Right? If I had a tenant in my place and I wanted to do a kitchen, I'd say, look, hey guys, I want to do a new kitchen. It's going to be out of action for 1 to 2 weeks, depending on what the kitchen company says. Yeah. Would you be okay if we just drop your rent by $150, $200, whatever it is a week, and we get you a new kitchen? I'm sorry, it's going to be, you just have to have a camp kitchen somewhere. Is that okay? And see if you can do it. Otherwise, you're going to have to do it after the tenancy.
Yeah. And most people are relatively
Again, it depends on the tenant.
Yeah, it depends on them. Yeah, interesting.
If you've got a tenant that wants to be there a long time, they go, great, I get a new oven, new bench. They could be excited about it.
And air conditioning as well. I mean,
aircon's a great one.
I don't think they ever complain.
Never complain about that.
Yeah. So you just got to ask. And I think that's the thing, right? Like doctors, they feel fearful of asking. So just leave it with the manager. Let the manager ask.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So if you are already renting something out, ask the property manager.
Right.
If it's a rental.
Yes.
And if it's your own owner occupied, obviously you don't have that problem.
That's right.
You probably have to ask the other boss, which is the partner or the kids or whoever is living with you, and get that done. Do you find more of the value add happens at the owner occupied level, or do you see it more happening at the investor level?
Both levels. Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing, in terms of what we're talking about today, I'm talking more about adding value to investment properties and even from when you first acquire it and you can see the potential and getting the reno done as soon as you bought it. So that's what I've typically done.
Yeah.
I've had several properties where I've added value before I've tenanted it out or just before I'm about to sell it. I've also done another reno just to give it a real uplift in value.
Yeah. And that cost of that becomes capitalized into the original thing. So you can't really deduct that from
I mean, if you're doing a renovation, obviously you've got building depreciation, 2.5% over 40 years.
Yeah.
But if you're doing repairs, it's an immediate tax write-off. So you've got to be very careful with that distinction. Don't get them mixed up between repairs and maintenance, which is immediately tax deductible, versus long-term renovation, which is a capital uplift, which is a much lower rate of depreciation.
So quantity surveyor
again. Another tip for everybody there, make sure you get your QS report done prior to the reno. Okay. And then you can get one done after the reno.
Okay.
So there used to be a thing called a scrapping report. I don't know if it still exists, but
I've heard of that.
You can actually write off, like if you've got an oven that's got 5 years worth of life,
you
can write that off immediately when you get rid of it and redo the kitchen.
Yeah, and you get that deduction immediately.
Correct.
Yeah. So get it done before and after the
It'll
reno.
cost you
$200.
$700 or something to get done, but it's worth it.
Yeah, interesting. Because the quantity survey, the report is tax deductible,
Exactly.
and then you might get some scrapping out of it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so now we're moving a bit away from cosmetic. We're talking about structural and say adding a granny flat. I think that's one of the things that you talk about. Granny flats are a great way to add value.
Yep. Yeah, fantastic. So I've done several granny flats myself and my team. We've done hundreds of granny flats for our clients. Granny flats are brought in under the state environmental planning policy for affordable housing to really increase other options for people. In New South Wales, you can build a granny flat anywhere as long as it's no more than 60 square metres. You don't have to go through council. It's what's called a complying development consent, CDC. It's a really great way to do it. You can do them in Queensland as well, in Brisbane, only in certain council areas. You've got to check with which councils will allow them. In Melbourne, they've recently changed the laws again, similar to New South Wales, where you can do granny flats everywhere as long as it complies with certain setbacks and certain sizes. So the reason I love granny flats, they add value. They add more than the value of construction. A lot of people say, it's going to detract from the value of the property. It doesn't. It literally adds more. Let's say it costs you $200,000 to build a granny flat. I reckon you're going to add $250 to $300 worth of value to the site because you're putting on a secondary income. So many home buyers and investors want to buy houses with granny flats because why? It's secondary income. You can help to pay down the mortgage faster. Right? Literally, you can put relatives or your granny in there. I don't know what percentage of granny flats actually have grannies in them.
I don't think a lot actually have grannies in them.
But I do know some families we've bought properties for where they've built the property and the elderly mum and dad have actually moved into the granny flat because they like it more than the house because it's newer, right? And it's all low maintenance and the kids are living in the house. So there is extended families that do it. And it really boosts the yield. So I've done a couple of granny flats, as I say. Recent one I talked about at the conference I did up on the Central Coast. It cost me $235,000 to build it. One of the tricks I did in building that granny flat is my granny flat was actually 95 square metres. And you go, well, you just said 60 square metres. Rich, what are you doing? Did you break the law? No, I didn't. It's 60 square metres of habitable space. And then you've got the garage and the patio. Even though that's under roof, that's not counted into 60 square metres. Yeah. So what I did is I converted my garage into another bedroom. So I got another 25 square metres worth of space, added an ensuite to that. So I've got a 3-bedroom granny flat now.
But if you have a garage, that obviously needs to be facing to a road.
It does. It's on the garage. It's at the back. So my granny flat was down the back of the block. There is a driveway to the granny flat. So what I did is where the roller door was, I simply put a gyprock wall. I created 1.5 meters of storage space. You pull up the roller door. You can put in surfboards and bikes in there, close it down. Behind that, there's a new bedroom. So I get $640 a week in rent for that granny flat. So it's boosted.
For that granny flat alone?
Yeah, just for that granny flat alone.
Is it a 2-bedder or 3-bedder?
3-bedder.
3-bedder. 3-bedder now.
Yeah, $640,000 and I spent, $235 building it. So fantastic yield, right?
Yeah.
Just on that component. But it's lifted the overall yield for the existing house to 6.5%. So, which is amazing on a resi property.
Yeah, because that's, that's 30-something $1,000 a year.
Correct. And that'll help pay down the loan a much faster rate.
The yield on that component
absolutely
is more than 10%.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I guess that not every property can obviously fit a granny flat.
No, that's right.
You got to select.
You got to be careful. Like you've got to have a decent land. So you typically want over 600 square meters before you do a granny flat. Like they're really small blocks, 300-400 square meters. It doesn't work. It's too squashy. And you got to create privacy. You got to have 3 meter setback off the rear boundary, 1 meter off the side boundaries. You got to be able to put up a fence, typically a colour-bond fence between the properties. So you got some privacy and a walkway. But all those granny flat companies are flat out, we do. And we know which granny flat companies to work with too. We work with hand in hand with a couple of them and recommend them to our clients.
Okay. All right. That's very interesting. And, I've seen some of these newer, almost granny flat style, but they're in like these sort of container, plunk them down kind of.
Oh, the prefabs.
The prefabs.
Yeah. Yes and no.
Are they any good?
Some of them work. I don't personally like them that much. A mate of mine built one, a shipping container, right? Up in Toowoomba, right? He put one at his place in Toowoomba. And we stayed in it, but it feels really squashy. It felt squashy and it felt like a box. I didn't like it personally.
Yeah.
But for certain properties, let's say it's a more regional area, that could work. Okay. In the cities, I probably wouldn't do the modular style. maybe parts of Western Sydney, we've done a few, and I've seen a few work there. It just, again, it depends on the block size and the configuration. And it all comes down to the numbers at the end of the day.
Of course.
Again, talk to the local property managers. They will advise you as to what tenants like, what they're willing to pay, because you'll hit a ceiling. Renters are very price sensitive, okay? No matter what you're renting, they're price sensitive. So make sure you're putting in the right kind of product for them to rent out. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck.
Okay. So those are, I guess, two of the strategies when you have an existing sort of house that you can do development on, right? The next one is probably a bit more complicated. Is actually you have an existing house, you either add an extension or you do a knockdown and rebuild. What is your take on that?
So again, I've done a couple of knockdown rebuilds myself, and they've been great. They've worked out pretty well. Again, you've got to choose the right builder, do your numbers. First thing I'd say with any of this sort of thing, whether it's a granny flat, a renovation or a knockdown rebuild, or we'll talk about some other strategies, do your feasibility up front. Crunch your numbers in a spreadsheet, do some research and work out that it's going to be profitable. No point doing this if you're just throwing money down the drain, overcapitalizing. So do that. So with a knockdown rebuild, the only reason you do it as an investor is that if I would suggest you're only going to do it if there's a really significant uplift in equity. Okay. I'd be wanting to do multiple properties if I'm doing a knockdown rebuild typically.
Is that like, say, a bigger plot and you subdivide?
Exactly. You can subdivide and do a duplex or put townhouses on it, right? That's what I'd be looking at. But more for owner-occupiers, there's definitely great opportunity to do knockdown rebuilds all over Australia. Again, just depends on the suburb. Because if you're going to live in it, capital gains tax-free when you sell it. And that can actually be another investment strategy, right? Finding blocks, depending if you're moving around a bit, you could find a block of land, find a builder, knock it down, live in it for a while and sell it capital gains tax-free. That's a really good strategy because people love new homes, right? Everything works,
Though I find that strategy is really useful when one of the people that living in it can actually build. Like it's not so useful if you're a doctor and
but you can outsource this. Like I mean, like I'll give you an example.
But it adds to the cost of that. Right?
It does add to the cost. But if you've got a good builder who's got a good it's all about the project manager. To be honest with you,
project manager.
It's all about the project manager as part of the building company. So we built with years ago, no advertising here, but I built with Metricon, and we had a great experience with them. Our friends who built at the same time didn't have a great experience, had a terrible experience. But we had different property managers. Our manager built our house in 6 months. It was unbelievable.
6 months.
It was knocked down in May. Slab went down in June. We got the keys in December. It was unbelievable. And it was a big house, 480 square metre house. So our friends were building a 350 square metre house. Theirs took 13 months. Simply because of different project managers. Now, we had a few little dramas at one point. They'd hadn't connected up one of the drain pipes correctly in our place, and came home one day to check out the site, and the whole ceiling of our garage had collapsed because the drain pipe just going into the ceiling void instead of the drain pipe going. Who knows, right? So they had to re-gyprock the whole thing. Pretty funny. But that was really the only drama we had. But if you're going to do a knockdown rebuild, we went out to Homeworld and picked a plan that we liked, which was a project home. And then what we did is up-spec everything. We put in spotted gum flooring. We did different appliances. We did higher ceilings. We added on a big rumpus room. So if you're going to go in the project route home, it's quite good because it's cost effective, but make sure you up-spec all the finishes and fittings so it doesn't look like a project home.
Okay. And just explain for those that don't understand what a project home is.
Like a project home is more a sort of a patented design. Like the project builders, there's a whole bunch of project builders out there that do volume. They do volume builds. So it's called a project home because they're volume builders. And there's certain designs they have that run for a couple of years, and then they do new designs. So ours was the Henderson 42, I think it was called at the time, 42 squares, and who knows who Henderson was, right? But that was the design. And then Eden Bray have a range of homes, and then Wisdom Home, and then there's AV Jennings. There's all these different builders out there.
So is that the one that you go out far out into the suburbs?
We actually got to walk through a design. So that was really cool. We could visualize what we're going to build, which was amazing, right? If you're building an architect design home, you can't actually walk through it. So for us, it was like we got to walk through it. We wanted to pick something that would work on our site. It took us a long time to find us a plan. We actually had an architect do a design, but we didn't like it for our block. And it was a lot cheaper to build a project home for us.
Yeah.
So that's how we did it. And we had but the hardest thing, I've got to tell you, one of the hardest things is choosing the finishes and the electrical plan. You spend literally, I think it was 2 days of time. One day was 5 hours doing the electrical plan. Where are we going to put the PowerPoints?
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Oh, my goodness. It drove me nuts, right? And then the next day was picking tiles, right?
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of choices you got to make when you do a rebuild. And be prepared, or if you're not into that, outsource it to an interior designer, okay? So that's a trap for young players, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of decisions to make when you're doing a new build.
Yeah. I've never built residential, but like my clinic is greenfield development, fully built. And I remember talking about the PowerPoints.
Yes.
Oh my God, that was absolute chaos. Yeah. Because it has to go through this the ceiling and then to the walls and
plumbing where you need special plumbing
things are. That's like a whole involved process. And
so be aware of that.
Yeah. There's a lot of detail in that.
But that's where things can go badly wrong.
Yeah.
Because we made one mistake with our PowerPoint, with our ensuite. We only had one PowerPoint on the right and no PowerPoint on the left. And so we got a double sink, and one of us wife has to plug in not the air conditioner, the hairdryer on that side.
We got
it retrofitted later, but it was a real pain. So.
Especially if you've got tiles over everything in the wall, you can't put it in the wall anymore. You can do it.
Well, it was very difficult to get done.
Big piece of work to go back
get
into.
The plan right is all the message I'd say. Get the plan right first. So that's the rebuilds, So
Okay. And any other strategy when you're things to look out for? So it sounds like you need a really good project manager, and that's the most important person.
Good builder and project manager. They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Most builders will provide you with a project manager.
Yeah.
But depending on what you're doing, like if you're going the next level up from a rebuild, let's say we're building now townhouses, right?
Yeah.
Or you're building small blocks of units. That's where you might want an external project manager to manage the whole process. They then get tenders from builders. They get the architects. They manage everybody. They'll get the town planner, environmental consultants, engineers. So it's a lot more involved when we're talking about a multiple dwelling type scenario.
Yeah.
It's a real next level. This is where you're learning to run. Okay.
Yeah.
I said, learn to walk before you run. Walking is kind of doing a cosmetic reno or knocking down your own house.
Yeah.
But when you're running a marathon, this is when you're building townhouses or apartment blocks. It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. And I would assume most doctors are not at that level. We actually have a family friend that does that sort of quite frequently, and it sounds like on appearances it's like, oh yeah, this sounds really easy to do, but I think when you actually speak to her and go down to the detail, there's a lot of minutia into it. And I gotta say, I think I had a really good experience building the practice building, but like,
how long did it take you to build?
Oh, it was less than a year, so it was actually not too bad. But like, it was very frustrating at times.
See, the other thing we can talk about is building costs.
Yeah,
like I look now back at what cost me to build that home back in 2014, I think it was, 820 grand, right? It would cost double that now. It would cost $1.5 million to build the same house today.
Yeah.
So building costs since 2000 have gone up 61%. So massive increase in building costs. And that's one of the other dilemmas and why we have a housing shortage, is because a lot of properties or apartment blocks, I guess, are not as viable to build. So we talk about the number of listings being low. Building approvals at the moment for houses is kind of tracking along the 10-year average, but building approvals for apartments is down 30, 35%, significantly down. And that's contributing to a housing shortage because construction costs are so high. So even though developers are getting approvals to build these apartment blocks, they're not feasible.
Viable.
They're not viable to build because they're just not going to achieve the price to recoup the building cost increase.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting because like in lots of other countries, they seem to be able to put up huge apartments for quite cheap because they've got the whole infrastructure there to do a lot of prefab and then just.
Well, this is where modular builds come back into its own. So if you can do modular and like I think it was a news article the other day about the banks are really backing modular now, and the housing ministers are all backing modular, which is great if you can do it. It's just a matter of getting acceptance in the market for that kind of product.
Are there much of that for land and houses sort of kind of build, like as in housing builds, or is it more for just apartments?
More for apartments, yeah. I mean, you can do modular with houses, but it's not as there's a new thing that the New South Wales state government's bringing in with what they call the pattern book. So they're trying to basically encourage people to pick a design. I think they're a bit boring, to be honest with you. I don't like them. It's kind of like, do you want red, blue, or yellow? I was like, I don't know.
Right.
It's a bit of a limited choice.
Yeah.
But they're trying to do that to encourage faster production of houses, which doesn't have to go through council again, because it's complying development consent. If it meets the state government guidelines, you can then get approval through a private certifier to build a certain type of dwelling.
Oh, so the design and everything's already
done,
already pre-approved. So it's basically cookie cutter.
Exactly, cookie cutter.
Yeah. I mean that makes sense, doesn't it?
It does make a lot of sense. Yeah, absolutely. But I don't. Again, it comes down to what's the market acceptance of this kind of dwelling?
Yeah.
Is there going to be a whole lot of? I think they look quite boring, to be honest with you. If you look it up, pattern design for the Department of Planning, it's a bit average in my view.
Oh, really? I haven't looked any of them up. And that's probably why when you go into the western suburbs, there's you walk down a street, it looks like exactly like the next street down, and the only difference is like color bond roof.
Correct.
Yeah. That's very interesting. What other sort of we talked about walking. Now, what are the running kind of developments?
Sure.
Just to get a taste for the listeners out there, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So a couple of other strategies people can think about. You could become what's called a passive developer. So instead of just actually doing the development yourself, as a doctor, if you've got plenty of equity or plenty of income or cash, and you want to invest in a project, get a higher return than what you just do on a standard resi property, you could co-invest in a joint venture with someone like myself or with another group and actually invest equity or cash into a project. And that project might do a much larger development, like 20 townhouses or 20 apartments. Because developers, I'm a developer myself. I'm doing a project up at Byron Bay. I think I mentioned at the course for 19 townhouses. We haven't invested in it, it's fully subscribed, but we needed around $2 to $3 million in order to get our DA and to get our construction certificate. So if someone's got anywhere from $1 to $2 million or $500K or a tranche of money, we love to work with people who've got that cash, and we'll pay them a return of somewhere between 10 to 15% on that money for up to 12 to 18 months while we participate in getting that project done. So it's a great way to get a return on your cash, being part of a development, but you don't have all the risks of having to do all the project management.
Yeah. So that's 12 to 18 months.
Yes.
And after that, just gets repaid.
Gets repaid, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does that work in the scheme of things in the process of development? You need that initial money to get the DAs.
We need that initial money,
approvals.
to help to buy the property as well. Often we try to get an option over the property, so we don't own the property and we don't execute on the property until we've got the DA, because we're trying to de-risk the project as much as possible. But we need that cash in order to spend money. Like our DA cost about $1 million because we had to go through Land and Environment Court. It was just dealing with Byron Council, as you can imagine. They're very anti-development, but barristers cost 10 grand a day, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, but we de-risked it we did a JV with the landowners, and so that enabled us to then get the project approved. And then we've now settled on the property, and we're now proceeding to move to the construction phase.
Okay. And when you do that settlement and the construction, obviously you need a lot more money.
Yeah. So at that point,
how does that work?
At that point, so once we've got the DA, then we can repay the investor, because we get a construction funder to come in, and we can get much cheaper rates. So we're typically paying sort of 8 to 9% on construction rates at that point. So we need that initial, what I call mezzanine or equity investor at that initial early phases of the whole process. But we need that money for like anywhere from 12 maybe to 24 months out. I mean, our DA took 24 months to get.
And for the the construction loan, do they just finance the whole thing? Or
yes, construction fund funds the whole thing, correct. Yeah, right through to the
and
end.
who pays for that interest in the meantime?
It's capitalised into the project.
It's capitalised into the project.
Yeah, you don't pay it off till the end.
Ah, right.
Yeah. So the other way that investors, any doctor investor out there, they could look at doing their own projects. So they could do a duplex. I did a project myself up in Brisbane. I built 2 townhouses on a double block of land. That took about how long? 18 months from start to finish. What else? You could also do a rooming house. I did mention this at the conference. And a rooming house is not a boarding house. Okay, a rooming house is a high value, high yielding asset that cost about anywhere from 1.2 to 1.5 million to build. You can only do them in Brisbane. You can't do them in New South Wales at this point. And they're a class 1 building, so they're not a class 2 or class 3 is like a whole different fire orders and stuff like that. But they're a 5-bedroom house. Each room has its own bedroom and living space and a kitchenette. There's also one large communal kitchen which has a bigger space with a bigger oven and everything. And then there's a shared laundry space.
Yeah. And they have each ensuite as well.
Each bathroom, they have their own bathroom. So it's like a little mini block of apartments, but it's just 5 bedrooms.
Yeah.
All got key locks or coded locks on the rooms, and each room is rented separately.
Yeah.
They're rented out anywhere from like $380 to $450 a week. But the yield on them is fantastic. So at like a $1.4 million rooming house, you might get $120,000 a year in rent. So it's almost an 8.5% yield. It's fantastic, and in many ways better than a commercial yield.
Yeah.
And lower risk as well. So we're working with a particular developer builder up in Brisbane to find these kind of properties. It does take around 12 to 14 months to build, to find and build these things. Very high demand because they got very, very high yield.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are very sort of unique classes.
Exactly. So again, there's not too much for a doctor client, for us, for example, there won't be too much risk or too much time management because all the design's done. They come fully furnished, even with knives and forks and TV screens. Right. Everything is fully, even the rugs on the floor, beds in the bedrooms, it's all fully furnished. And then it's rented to anyone in the local area. It could be another medical professional, it could be a tradie person, could be a single person, divorcee, could be a student, whatever. So they're all really highly sought after in these areas.
Yeah, they sound quite attractive because when I was doing a lot of locuming in regional areas, there's lots of transient hospital staff.
Yes.
And that sounds like a perfect kind of accommodation for doctors going on doing locums. And, might just buy up some property near hospitals and just plonk them there.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it sounds like this is only available in Brisbane City.
Correct. Brisbane
Yeah.
City Council.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah, you can't do them Well, we are looking at getting approvals to do them in places like Townsville as well, which is again critical shortage of rental properties. So other parts of Queensland we can do them, but we're just looking again at the legislation to make sure they're all compliant.
Yeah, and it sounds like we've touched previously. It sounds like there's a lot of legislative things which can be improved on to solve the housing shortage, but it's not quite there because there's a state, there's a federal, and there's individual local council issues.
Yeah,
lots
of layers. Yeah,
lots of layers to it. Yeah.
That's why the granny flat legislation is great because it's just it bypasses council. You can get a private certifier to come in and do it as long as it complies with the setbacks and everything. You can just get it done.
Yeah, I mean, spending $1 million for a DA, that sounds like a lot of money.
Well, that's for 20 townhouses.
Yeah, but even then, 20 that's $50,000
exactly
each. That's a lot of money.
Absolutely.
for some paperwork.
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess the councils have to do what they have to do. Okay, so I think lastly, one of the things that I think caught a lot of doctors' interest was in this development piece, as in we spoke about the syndicated investment.
Yes.
Getting is there any way for, say, some doctors to say, hey, we're going to do some development and I'll take a property as
profit? So that's a really good point. If we back up from what we just talked about before, rather than putting money in for just the 12 to 18 months and then getting paid out, if you leave the money in for the whole duration of the project, then you could potentially take the property, whatever's being built, as profit. So instead of getting an interest rate return, you're getting the property and the equity you built up in that property is profit. So let's say... So
how does that work?
So let's say we're doing... We find a block of land. It's going to cost us $5 million. We're going to build 10 townhouses and they're going to be worth $2 million each at the end of the process. So if you put in I just have to, I can't remember.
Let's just make up numbers.
I'm making up numbers.
Yeah.
This may not be right, but let's say you put in 500K or even, leave 500K up front in order to get the project done. You might end up with a townhouse at the end of it worth 2 million. I just don't think you've got to make sure that the feasibility works. You've got to make sure it's around 30% return on cost and to make it viable for the whole project to work.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the project, you'll end up with a townhouse worth 2 million. You've got your 500K that you put in, plus whatever profit you've made on that. Let's say you make another, 300 to 5. Let's say it's 500. I'll be generous. Let's say you make 500K profit. So you bought a $2 million townhouse for $1 million.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's the way, and that's sort of fast track, and that could be anywhere from a 18-month to 2.5-year project to do that.
Yeah.
And that's a way in which you invest into property, but you're not paying immediate capital gains tax.
Yeah.
You're not getting a rental income from it straight away, but you will get rental income from it once you finish the project. So it's a way to build instant equity and get into participate in a development in a passive way and end up with a property as profit.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't really talked about this, so let's workshop this a little bit, right?
Sure.
And forgive us for being completely off the cuff on this one.
Yeah.
I'm interested in this because the previous option you talked about, having some, it's more of a debt sort of investor rather than a real property investor, right? Because I'm just thinking there will be people who are, say, they want to be more equity investors in that, similar to what you just described.
Yes.
And when
they just want a cash return, not a property return, you mean?
Yeah, or a cash return or a property return, because there's different ways of, I think there's different ways of structuring it. If you say you had a 10-unit block and the cost of it was X amount of initial capital, and then you borrow the rest of that money for, which gets capitalized for the construction loan.
Yes.
So say all of that altogether, the project would be 10 properties, $10 million, for instance, right? And you can sell them for 1.5 or $2 million, whatever number you make up afterwards. Yeah. Do you envisage a type of way where you get, say, 10 investors, each one of them hold their various units in them, and at the end, when the project is finished, somebody could say, okay, I want to keep one, and this is the additional cost I got to pay.
Exactly.
And then there's some say, I just want to sell and get the profit.
You can have a choice. You basically, you can have, let's say, just keep numbers 10.
Yeah,
you have 10 investors.
Easy,
You can decide, you don't have to decide straight up whether you're going to keep the property or sell the property, either way, but you're going to make a return. Right?
Yeah.
The only thing from a tax perspective, if you do sell it, then you're going to be taxed on whatever the gain is on that asset. Right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. So from a
big.
tax effectiveness point of view, it's probably better off to hang on to it and just rent it out and build your net worth that way. But again, the investors can have that choice as to whether they hold it or whether they sell it.
And then from the management perspective, as in the person running the deal, the developer, then you get your, there's obviously the developer cut in there.
Yes.
And,
Correct.
But then it's all working as one.
Working as a team. That's right.
Working as a team rather than a typical, the developer's here and then you do it off the plan. And
that's right.
It's the buyer versus the developer almost in a way.
It's like everyone is participating as a group. It's a group purchase.
Yeah.
And then there's a group profit to be shared.
Yeah. Is that something that is present in the market right now, I guess? I'm sure there are groups out there doing it. Again, you just got to be compliant with ASIC rules and got to be careful. You're not seem to be running a scheme unless you've got a full financial license. But there's definitely ways that can be done in a absolutely compliant way. Yeah. Because I don't think you hear much about these things.
No, they're often done under the radar, so to speak.
Yeah,
because
they're all private.
Because they're private debt. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And that's perhaps something that can be explored in the future.
Absolutely.
Because, it just makes property a bit more interesting.
Absolutely.
The buy and hold.
That's right. Yeah.
I think the buy and hold is like, it's nice, but it's boring.
But again, you do both. You can do both.
Of course.
But I think it's also good for investors, especially doctors, to get that asset base. You don't want to have too many. Like, things can go wrong in projects. Right?
Of course.
A builder could go bust, for example. There could be a GFC, which stalls. There could be, freezers on construction materials. I don't know. Who knows what can happen? So you don't want to have 4 projects going and no sort of buy and hold properties under your belt.
Yeah,
That's why I say get a bunch of buy and hold properties under your belt. You control it. It's a lot less risk. It's a much easier way to build your
I mean, you got to get started, as you said.
You got to get started.
Crawl before you can walk.
Exactly.
And then, walk before you run.
the risk with development is bad feasibilities are done. Like you've overstated the estimated rental costs.
Yeah.
You've got council delays. You've got, overpaying for the land. Building costs can run out. So there are risks there, but you've got to manage all those risks.
Yeah. And at what stage do you say, this is all too much? Like, before you...
Oh, before you commit. You
commit to it, right?
You don't get halfway through the project, goes on too much, no way.
Yeah.
You do it right up front. That's why, you do your spreadsheet on conservative numbers.
Yeah.
You don't do it on hopeful numbers. You never put in hopeful numbers. I hope I'll achieve X. I hope I'll achieve $2.5 million resale when it's only $2 million. No, you put in today's resale value, not down the track resale value.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the idea is that the valuation will go up.
Exactly. You expect it to go up.
Yeah.
You don't hope it's going to go up.
Yeah. Okay. So there's some really wise words over there. So anything we haven't mentioned yet, Rich?
I think we've pretty much covered a lot of it. I think, with value adding type things, there's kind of a logical progression if you kind of, as I say, learn to get better at value adding. So think about a cosmetic reno, you might think about a granny flat, you might think about that, or you could participate in a development scheme as a passive investor. But again, just be careful of all the red flags. So don't buy in areas that's going to be flood affected or fire affected, or where there's weak infrastructure or potentially a lot of problems. But there's lots of opportunities at the moment for development work in terms of around Sydney particularly. The new LMR, low to medium residential density areas. So there's all these councils around Sydney have been earmarked, or locations I should say, 800 metres within a station or a community shopping centre where you can do townhouses or apartments up to 3 stories now. So that's a huge game changer for more affordable, low to medium density housing. So you'll see a lot more of that popping up, which is great for downsizers that want to be able to walk to shops or walk to stations. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to get into development through that scheme.
Yeah. And it's almost as simple as having one of those properties near there and just
building it. That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's not as
simple.
quick as snap your fingers as get the approval.
You got to plan for it.
I'm doing one myself at the moment. We're going through the process of getting the architect to do 4 townhouses. So I'll tell you more about the experience as we go.
Okay, 4 townhouses. How big's the plot?
About 800 square meters.
Yeah. Is that one? Was it a single one?
Yeah, it's 4 townhouses in a row. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So 1 block of land. Yeah.
All right. That's interesting. Well, we'll link back with you in a couple of months and see how that's going. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Rich, for sharing some of the more sort of sophisticated, I would say, the more interesting aspects of property investing.
Pleasure.
I'm sure we'll bring you back some other day to talk about your experiences.
Thank you so much, B. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rich. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The information and opinions shared are not intended as personal financial advice. The content presented should not be relied upon for making financial investment or other decisions. Listeners are strongly encouraged to seek the advice of qualified financial or legal professionals before making any financial decisions. While we aim to provide valuable and accurate information, we make no guarantees regarding the completeness or accuracy of the content. Any reliance on the information provided is done at your own risk.